15 of a Jez and Friends podcast. Today's special guest of the podcast is Guy Walker. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, it's good, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a nice sunny day today in Melbourne, so it's a nice change. And thanks for having me on, mate. Look forward to some of the questions.
No worries, mate. We're going to be covering many topics, including Guy's sporting career, his podcast, The Athlete Diaries, and plenty of funny stories. Mate, what are your thoughts on lockdown so far?
It's been challenging, that's for sure. I think probably the first bit of lockdown, I think everyone was just starting to get used to it, and I think everyone's starting to get a bit frustrated now. But I found it almost a great time to try to learn some different things. And I think if you can keep engaged and keep, for me personally, to make sure that you've got a little plan for your well-being, whether that's exercise by doing meditation, mindfulness, and keeping busy, mate. So I've been okay during it, but I've definitely can feel for some people that have lost their jobs or businesses are struggling. Like, it's a difficult time, and I think everyone's just looking forward to getting out of it now.
Yeah, fair enough. Same as well. It's been pretty tough, the lockdown, I must say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm moving on. So, mate, what's your favorite song right now? I don't know what you listen to, but just anything.
My favorite song. Yeah, wow. I probably don't have a favorite song, but I've got a couple of favorite bands. I kind of like bands like Holy Holy and Skeggs and that sort of stuff, mate. But I don't think you can go past watching bands like Oasis. I watched the
Oh, mate,
documentary on them the other
I
night,
love
and
Oasis, mate.
oh, how good's Noel Gallagher? Noel and Liam. They're just.
Yeah, just
I love
amazing.
Liam. He's the funniest man in the world. If you get a chance, have a look at their documentary. I think it's on Stan, I think it's on Stan. But it's unbelievable. It just sort of shows their life and how they just don't care. They just sort of live how they wanted to live, and the media had absolutely nothing over them. They did not care at all. It was good to see though, just because like they're just being themselves and they don't have to sort of change for the media, which was really good to see.
So, what's your favorite song from Oasis, mate?
Um, don't look back in anger. I reckon I'm not. I'm a Wonderwall
Yeah,
fan, but I think they've got better songs than Wonderwall. Like, Don't Look Back in Anger is definitely my favorite.
mine's Wonderwall. I just love that guitar chorus thingy. So, but
Yep,
don't
they
look
are
big.
pretty good.
Don't look back in anger's second, I'd say. Yeah.
Yep.
So, mate, tell us about going to high school. At Maribyrnong College. Which I've played against many times. So, talk us through that because
Yep.
it's a public school, and some people say private school is the way to go for like pursuing a professional career, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm probably on the opinion that it actually enhances your chances going to a public school, because you have to learn resilience quickly, like a lot more than you would have at a private school. Your hands not held as much, and I'm a massive believer that private school sports actually deters you from actually improving as an athlete. If you're playing against um, kids the same age that aren't as skillful as you, of course you're going to bully them week in, week out, and then you can sort of see it. I remember when I was injured, and even watching Footscray play, like, we were all the same Footscray Premier Club, and we were all public school boys, and you could almost see when them private school boys came up to that level to play against men, they sort of went to water some of them, and you always thought that you were in the game because it was almost like a dog eat dog. And that's how we won a premiership. The first one in 30 years at the Dogs was just by, we were talented. We had a great team, but just that will to win and that absolute dogfight was just something that we were amazing at. And I guess some of the kids that have come out of Maribyrnong College and some of my good mates that are now professional athletes sort of credit how hard it was back then and how ferocious the competition was at that school, which was made them better players at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a great response, mate. I'm a big Kangas fan. Did you know Kane Turner when you were at Marby?
Uh, I think he came a little bit later. I met him a couple of times. From the couple of times I had a few conversations with him, he came across as a good fella. But mate, the Kangas, they had a pretty big delisting yesterday, didn't they? There's a few players I thought they were going to have a couple of delistings, but there's a couple of good players in there that are probably a little bit stiff, but it just shows that they're struggling at the moment massively, aren't they?
Yeah, Jamie was my favorite player, and I was sad to see him go, to be honest.
Yeah, well, Mason Wood, I think they're pretty stiff. Even you look at Paul Ahern, like he had when he played, he averaged probably above 20 possessions and injured a bit, but from what I've heard, he's a hard worker and he's a good clubman. So there's some pretty serious delistings. But I think this is just the beginning of this off season. Now that list sizes will probably go to 35 to 40 players, and the draft goes ahead. Like most clubs are probably going to have 8 to 10 delistings. It's going to be a pretty tough year on sport.
Yeah, mate. Speaking of sports, mate, tell us about your sporting career, because not many people would like know who you are, considering like the amount of like injuries you suffered and all that. So just talk us through that quickly.
Yeah, I was sort of that coming up, sort of playing footy, playing cricket, and just really enjoying myself, and sort of had to make that decision to sort of go cricket or footy, and got offered a contract with Cricket Victoria and the Melbourne Stars when I was 17, and I thought it was just too good of an offer to sort of refuse, and yeah, I sort of went the cricket route. So played Australian under-19s as a 17-year-old, and played in a World Cup. We made the semi-final against South Africa, and we lost that game, and then I went on to play, sort of be contracted with Cricket Victoria for probably 7 years, and then Melbourne Stars for a year and the Melbourne Renegades for 3 years. Made my Big Bash debut, and then yeah, you're right, just so many injuries, so many surgeries, and footy was always coming back, knocking on the door each year, saying that we want you to come across to play with us, and I was sort of going to go to quite a few different clubs, and then Melbourne came knocking last minute after that 2018 final series, and I just thought that was going to be the best place to go for me. So went there and suffered another severe injury that eventually sort of finished my career at 20 on my 24th birthday.
Yeah. So talk us through the injuries. How do you like overcome adversity and like use like mental health strategies and all that? Because like for kids growing up, some people wouldn't know how to like deal with injuries and setbacks and all that.
Yeah, it's another good question, and it's something that I've spoke to many teammates, many friends about, and just try to pick people's brains. And I think someone that was really good for me was my former teammate at Victoria, John Hastings, who's retired now, but he went through a lot of the similar injuries in his shoulder that I did. And I think it's just about making the most out of your situation. And for me, it was just learning a lot about gratitude and making sure that you're happy with where you're at. And I guess a lot of athletes sort of take that road of I'm injured, the world's against me, everyone feels sorry for me, and it isn't a nice time, but you've got to try to change the fact there that to practice some things and go and do some voluntary work while you're injured, and to see that, yeah, it's not going well for you at the moment, but there's a lot of people doing it a lot tougher than you. So you're still contracted, you're still getting an income. Get outside of the bubble. That's what I always try to say to athletes now is it only lasted 10 to 15 years, and that's if you have a great career. But for most athletes, it lasts less than 5 years. So get out there. Something that I did was I studied a little bit. I did a lot of work experience. I worked for Channel 7. I worked at Flemington Racecourse with a horse trainer. I was a special guest on a radio. I went and worked with the partnerships teams at the footy club. So I just try to get out there and try to see what I would sort of like for after sport. And it made it a little bit easier for me to transition out of sport, because some people really, really struggle with it.
Yeah, 100%, mate. So you must have played with some pretty good players and against. So who's the top three, if you can say, like that you've faced or played with?
Yeah. Another good question. I was extremely lucky. I walked into as a 17-year-old into Victoria with some amazing players. Like, it was crazy. My first week there, I walked in and I'm training alongside Aaron Finch, Glenn Maxwell, Cameron White, James Pattinson, Peter Siddle, and it's just straight away you're in the nets with them. So I got really, really used to sort of training with them guys, and then probably the best three players I reckon I played with. I'm still a massive advocate. People always say who's the best sort of cricket brain you've ever seen. I always say Cameron White by an absolute mile. The knowledge of the game he has is incredible. So I'll say him one, and I played that game, that Renegades game, played with Chris Gale and Dwayne Bravo and Aaron Finch and Wade and Matty Wade and them boys, and played against Chris Lynn and that sort of stuff. So probably them blokes in that game, I reckon.
Yeah, I do remember watching that. Didn't you get smacked out of a park a bit by Chris Lynn?
Yeah, it was an interesting game. I remember it vividly. Some aspects of it. I think my first over, I had Lendl Simmons, West Indian international, dropped, and then also Chris Tremaine dropped it and actually palmed it for 6 as well. I think it was.
Oh yeah,
So it
yes.
wasn't the greatest start, but yeah. Then I actually, it was funny. I actually had Chris Lynn on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and me and Linny were kind of reliving it, and he just said, for fans, it's unbelievable when you actually are out on the Gabba, how small the boundary is straight, but how wide they are square. And we were just having a laugh, and Linny just said, it wasn't the ground for me to be playing. I was just trying to bowl as fast as possible. And Linny just said, you were bowling wheels. I was just trying to swing, connected to a couple. And at the Gabba, if you miss hit them for 6 and you're trying to bowl too fast, you're on the receiving end of it. So I wasn't smart enough. I didn't bowl enough slower balls, and Linny got hold of me. I think one over went for 20, and yeah, it's full on when you got 30,000 Brisbane Heat fans sort of yelling, and you're bowling to probably at the time the best T20 batsman in the world on the flattest wicket in Australia. It's for your debut game, it wasn't the most fun. I'll say that.
Yeah, mate. So moving on, it's social media minute. So every week, whoever comes on the podcast basically creates a hashtag. So Guy, create a hashtag, mate.
Create a hashtag. We'll go with the Big Bash experience and Lenny smacking me. So we'll go hashtag hit for 6.
Oh, mate. Yeah. So my quote of a podcast is push yourself because no one is going to do it for you. What is a quote or something you live by, mate?
um, I think there's a few different ones for me, but I think for me it's always about getting out there, and around fear. So it's probably something that I don't have one exactly, but it's probably about facing your fear. And this period has been massive in that, is that people, like you said about lockdown, is people sort of haven't, have ideas like yourself, like you've started this podcast, and so many people say to me, geez, I have this idea for a podcast, but I haven't done it. I'm scared of what people will think. I'm scared of this. It's like, I spoke to a bloke called Mark Visser about facing your fears, and it's all internal. It's actually not about external. Is that to face your fears, you've got to go out there and do them, and don't care what people think. And it's all our internal battles, and it's about dealing with what you've got going inside. So that's a big one for me, is that if you've got an idea, go and have a crack. Like even in business, like I speak to some guys about who started a business after sport, and they had no credentials to start a business. They didn't have a degree in business, but they've gone and had a crack, and they've gone and they're doing really well now because they're go-getters. And that's what I always say, is that to be a go-getter, you've got to be fearless. And to be fearless, you've actually got to go out there and deal with the internal issues or internal pressures that you've got for yourself, because it's normally built up in your own head.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Um, so what's the last movie you've watched?
Yeah. What is the last movie? Like I said, I watched that. I watched the Oasis documentary the other night, and that was unbelievable. I can't even remember what the last movie I watched. I'm a massive TV series fan. I don't watch a hell of a lot of movies. So I'll probably say the last TV show I've been watching is Billions. I don't know if you've seen that. So Billions and Oasis.
Yeah, I haven't seen Billions, so just quickly, what's it about?
It's like this absolute money making machine, private stock investor, but it's just like the drama of it and the way he invests his money, and it's just like a bit of a drama, but it's actually quite good.
Cool. I pride myself on this, mate, on the podcast, but do you have any like specific campfire stories or any funny stories that you remember from either your playing days, high school, just whatever, mate?
Um, I've probably got a couple in there that probably aren't PG, so I'll try and
Oh,
keep it as PG as possible.
yeah.
I've I've got probably. this one actually got brought up the other day, and I forgot about it. I forgot about it for years and years. But I went to high school and knew Took Miller for a long time. We were best mates. We were best mates for a long time until he moved to the Gold Coast. And um, he was on a podcast the other day, and he was sort of reliving this story. And I was sort of thinking about it. And what used to happen was, people that know Maribyrnong College now for what it is, it's an amazing state-of-the-art sports school,
Yeah.
incredible. But when we first went there, we were training out of a shed. It was the most multicultural school you would ever have been to, but it wasn't. Everyone was inclusive of each other. It was each culture was against each other. So to fit in, and then it was the start of the sports school. So every one of these cultures hated the sports school. So what used to happen was we used to have to get the tram back, and we used to live next to each other, and we used to get the tram back from school, year sevens, and all the footy boys would get off a couple of stops before we would. And there was a couple of boys on the tram as well that used to hold me and Took but on the tram until we got to the end Mooney Pond stop. So we used to have to go 20 minutes past our house to Mooney Ponds because they used to hold us on the tram. And then we were just so little, like we couldn't do anything about it. And then we used to have to get the tram back home. So it'd be like an extra hour trip just because these boys would be like, nah, you're coming with us to Mooney Ponds and then you can go back. So we used to try and get off. We used to try and sit down and try and jump off at our stop and try to like slowly press the buzzer. And then, yeah, they used to just get us. When we used to try and get off, they used to grab us and just pull us back on. So like they weren't being violent or anything, but that's just the way it was back then at Maribyrnong. Like it was as rogue as a school as you could have possibly gone to.
I can't lie, that's a pretty funny story. I've never had a similar experience, but I can tell you, Barbie's changed, I reckon, in the last 10 years, like massively, like as you said, because
Yep.
the sports system there is like quite amazing now, and other schools try to, I don't know, base their program on theirs now, kind of. That's what my school's
Yeah,
doing. Yeah, it's
yeah, they do,
amazing.
mate. Yeah, it's crazy. Like literally, it's yeah, being able to go up to the NCC and live at the academy in Brisbane for cricket for a while, and go to some places around the world where they have sports academies. But genuinely, Maribyrnong is probably as good, if not better, than a lot of them places. It's absolute state of the art around the world now.
Yeah, we'll move on now. So, mate, what's your number one goal at the moment?
I think my number one goal is just to keep creating value at the moment. So for me, I'm someone that tries to stay away from almost that whole fact of when you're employed and you get paid for your time. So it's almost like um, yeah, you go out, you get paid for your time at a job, you get paid for it, then the money runs out, and then you go back. So the big thing for me is to keep trying to create value. So that's with the podcast, ways to deliver content, audio, video way, and also got a couple of different business ventures at the moment. So it's just for me, probably the goals is to keep building these assets and trying to almost get away from that security and stability phase of what most people work for, and to be able to create value that can keep sort of generating different incomes and sort of give me the freedom and flexibility to work with people and sort of spend more time doing things that I like to do.
Yeah, that's really good, mate. So true or false here? Is it true, when you're at Marby, that during, I don't know, lunch breaks or yeah, that you'd go to High Point Shopping Centre for a feed or something?
That's definitely true. Yeah, we were we especially at the start it was true. Like we used to do it, and then a couple of times we used to get caught. But it was almost like genuinely in year 7 and 8 at Maribyrnong, if you did that, like nothing really would have happened because that was just the norm. Every kid did it. So it was a bizarre thing. Like to think about it now, that like year sevens and year eights would just leave school and go to High Point for lunch. We didn't used to do it much, but a few of the more rebellious kids would do it a hell of a lot more because they started putting impacts for us around if you do it, you might get kicked out of the sports program. So we quickly pulled
Wow,
our heads in.
fair enough. You might have did it a few times though. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, for sure, mate. Talk us through the Athlete Diaries because I've listened to a few of the episodes. It's inspired me, and inspires others as well. So tell us why you've been running it, or what inspired you, and yeah.
Yeah, so it's I've wanted to do it for years now, but I've always, especially with sport, not quite found the time and probably haven't put enough time into it. Where I just, especially at the start of isolation, I wanted to be able to show the stories of sports, of athletes and professionals around their lives, their journeys, their challenges, because you normally just see in the media the real top guys, what they're doing, how good it is. But I sort of wanted to show the other side of it, is that yeah, even these top guys, they have their injuries, they have their form struggles, but also they have things on the outside of life, like Will Bukowski and Sammy Harper were my first couple of episodes. Very good friends of mine that, for anyone that didn't know, Sam went through some serious concussion issues. Will's gone through some mental health issues, and it's just showcasing different stories and different ways that I think it's so powerful for people to go, oh, well, look at these sports stars. They actually struggle in their sport sometimes, and they struggle in life sometimes. And they've been amazing to go, well, yeah, I've found it tough with my mental health, and this is what I've done for it. And had so many messages from people saying, hey, look, and from friends that I didn't even know that were struggling at the time, and just saying, hey, mate, look, I'm struggling at the moment. Like, do you mind if we can have a chat? And I think that's so powerful, is that to actually start building them conversations. But yeah, mate, it's been incredible. I've had some amazing athletes on at the moment share their stories and the challenges they've gone through, and some incredible people. And I think it's so important at this time just to be able to connect and show that it's actually okay to not feel well in these times. And it's about trying to support each other and help each other along the way. So yeah, mate, it's been incredible so far, and I've got some amazing episodes coming up. Like, just had Christian Petrarca on, and got Ellie Pashley, an Australian marathon runner, and then Chris Lynn, Matty Renshaw, Matthew Richardson coming up. So we've got some really good names, but they're good names, but they actually show their stories and show the challenges that they had during their careers. So it has been really powerful.
Yeah, it's been really good, guy, because like you have different people tell their stories, whether like Lee was a runner, like the one I listened to, and away played soccer, and is his name Mark or Mike?
Yeah, Mark Visser.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
a surfer, was he?
Yep.
Yeah, so they all like um play different sports and all that, and they all have different stories, which is good as well. So
Yeah, definitely. And they talk about different things. Like if you listen to the Mark episode, he's created a lot of courses now around fear and how to actually help yourself and how to be fearless and how to deal with different things. And it's really good because it sort of brings in so many different audiences. And some people might like one episode and then they might not enjoy the next episode, sort of thing. So there's just a bit there for everyone, and just trying to showcase stories and try to help people and add value to people's lives the best that we possibly can.
yeah, for sure, mate. Keep it up because it's going pretty well at the moment. Can't lie.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, you too. That's good.
Yeah, cheers. Have you had a sneak peek at one of my episodes?
Yeah, mate, I've just sort of listened to a little bit of like trailers and that sort of stuff as well. And then sort of the way that you almost integrate some mates from school and that sort of stuff as well, which is really cool. I imagine some of the boys want to come on from some of your mates from school as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah, a fair bit, and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
get a few more chicks in it, etc." But
Yep.
yeah. Oh, mate, what are your fears? Do you have any particular fears? Mine are like snakes and spiders and all that.
Yeah, mate, I'm similar to you. I'm absolute. Oh, probably my biggest one is I went before I had all my shoulder surgeries. I was a massive surfer, and I love the fact of I'm someone that when I start to do something, I want to get good at it, and that was something that I started to surf and started to want to get really really good at it. And I feel like when you're sort of at the back of the ocean, you're just with a mate or something, you just sort of forget everything that's going on in life at the moment, and you're just with nature, which is amazing. But my fear is sharks. I
Yeah,
remember, oh mate, I lived up, like I said, I lived up in Brisbane for quite a while at the academy, and we used to go down to the Gold Coast every weekend, and I used to surf at Burleigh and all these big places, and all the time you'd see sharks, like you'd hear on the news shark sightings and that sort of stuff, and they absolutely terrify me because I make sure that I'm not the furthest out. If I'm surfing, I make sure I'm always there's a couple of people further out. But unfortunately, there was a guy that was actually mauled this week, and he was actually closer to the beach than most people. So they absolutely terrify me, but I think they're just incredible creatures at the same time.
Yeah. Have you been surfing in Port Fairy? Because that's where I went for camp and we got to surf there. So.
No, I haven't been to Port Fairy. That's a fair way. It's a way out, but I've been along that way, sort of Warrnambool and like
Oh
Geelong,
yeah.
Torquay ways and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's a nice place, isn't it? Port Fairy, nice little town.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Good holiday spot, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful spot.
Um, do you have a object that holds sentimental value that means a lot to you?
Yeah, probably. Because I was originally born in England, born in Nottingham. I'm not a massive sports fan. Like I love sport. I'll probably rephrase it. I'm not a massive team fan of anyone. Like I don't. I like Melbourne. I want Melbourne to do well. The Demons, because I was there. I want the Renegades to do well. I want Victoria to do well. But the one team that I love, and the only team I love in the world really, is Nottingham Forest, and I think that's sentimental to me. I've got couple of jerseys, and I think that's so sentimental because it's where I was born, where my family live. I love football. I want to see them do well. If you haven't seen it, Nottingham Forest were absolute world beaters in the 1960s, 1970s, 80s, and they've struggled since then. So that's probably my sentimental thing is my whole family goes for them, and my jersey I take them wherever I go.
Yeah. So you don't follow the Premier League, or you do, but you don't have a team there. Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, yeah, I do love it. I love watching the Premier League and watch some of them blokes. The skills they have is incredible. But yeah, like tonight, Forest will be on Kaya, I think. So they play at 9:30. So straight away, I
Oh,
make
mate.
sure I get a yeah, mate. It's awesome. And one of my best mates, Joel Smith, who plays at the Demons as well. We went to school together, and he his family are from Derby, and if people don't know, Nottingham Forest and Derby County absolutely hate each other. We're county from
Yeah.
county, and we absolutely hate each other. But he found out that his parents, or his grandma, is born in Derby, so we have a massive. Whenever it's Nottingham versus Derby, we make sure that we have a couple of beers and sit together and put our tops on and sort of give each other a bit of crap for the game. It's good fun.
Yeah, for me, I follow like basically every sport. My favorite team is Leicester, as you can see, like with Jersey, and I have this Jamie
Oh
Vardy book,
yeah,
so
yeah,
I look up to him because he came from like
that's
ninth
nice,
league and
mate.
all that. Yeah, so
Yeah. They're literally Leicester are probably 30 minutes away from Nottingham. It's our next county, so it was awesome to see them win the league. And that's the great thing about football is that like you look at Man City that probably spent like hundreds and hundreds of
yeah,
millions
for
on their
sure, it's
players,
all
and
oil
Leicester,
money. Yeah,
yeah, and Leicester like they've come from nowhere and they won the league. And I remember that year I was in England that year they won the league, and it was almost like I remember the media was like Liverpool will get them or like someone will get them. They'll fall. Oh, this week they'll lose. This week they'll lose. But they just kept winning, and then they won the league, and everyone in Nottingham was so happy for them as well.
yeah. I have a funny story. So my mate Abdi, he was on the podcast earlier. I had a bet with him $100, I think. We were in grade six or something. That he's like Leicester's not going to win the Premier League, and they ended up winning, and he never coughed up the $100. So, oh mate,
Ah, mate. So he still owes you $100 then.
yeah,
Abdi, if you're listening, you owe Jez $100. So get it to him.
yeah, Abdi. Um, who motivates you the most and why, guy?
Yeah, another good question. I haven't really sporting terms. Probably some of my teammates when I was playing, especially cricket, watching some of the boys train, there's an absolutely the great players that play for Australia. They have that next work ethic, like Glenn Maxwell was the way they field, and I found it in my career that they actually want to help as well. So I try to sit down and have coffees with blokes like him, blokes like Cameron White, and try to learn from them. And I found out in life and in sport, I found first in sport and then into life as well, is that people just keep saying, "Oh, you're busy, I'm busy, I'm busy," but it's not really. It doesn't really mean anything. It's about being effective, and being effective for me was sort of speaking to these blokes and training with these blokes and actually training quality over quantity. Because I was always someone that got told, be there half an hour before, you be the last one at training, whatever. But if you're actually practicing things for the sake of it, you actually don't get better. So it's about quality, and then it's transferred over to the business world as well. Is that I have a couple of mentors as well, and it's about of a really, really good guy that's really good in business. And he sort of says that make sure that you have a to-do list every day. Make sure that you're being effective. Use your time effectively because that's all you got, your time. So that's probably the guys that have sort of motivated me in previous years.
Yeah, and just quickly, because obviously you made it like professional and stuff, and my goal next year is to make states for running like 800 meters because
Oh
the
yeah,
last few years I've come close. Oh well, not really. I've made like regionals or divisions, but I
oh
didn't
cool.
train much. So like, what would you recommend? I've been trying to train like 3 times a week, not overtrain, but yeah.
Yeah, I always say this to especially aspiring athletes is that try to find someone that you want to try to find someone that you sort of want to develop and sort of become a similar athlete to them and almost reach out to them and just say, hey, look, do you mind if we can grab a coffee at one stage? Or if not, in these times, do you mind if we can get on Zoom? Or like the worst thing they can possibly say is no, because at the end of the day, if the good people want to help people. So and I just had Ellie Pashley on Thursday, and she's an amazing. I think she's run a 2:26 marathon. She's run a 31-minute 10K, and the way that she trains is incredible. She does long runs, but then she also mixes it up to actually become a better runner and works on strength and works on the track and works on long runs. So it's about, again, training quality over quantity. Like, yeah, so pretty much I'll try and target someone that that may have some really good training programs or what they do. So maybe reach out. If I was you, I would reach out to someone that maybe is in the 800, or maybe someone that's trying to that's aspiring to go to the Olympics, and just reaching out to them and saying, hey, look, it's amazing what you're doing. I'm trying to do this next year, and do you mind sharing with me what you do for training during the week? And then they might ask you, oh, well, what are you looking to do? Are you looking to better your time? And then they might say, well, yeah, go and do this and this and this. So, and then it's also about nutrition as well. So maybe it might be, oh, where do you get your nutrition plans from? And so it's just about developing that information and that knowledge and then implementing it yourself. So it's not about 3 times a week going to the track and running 10K, and because you need to let your body rest. And that's what I say about quality over quantity, is that you need to have that knowledge base. I used to be someone that used to go into the nets and try to hit so many balls, and I was just doing it for the sake of it, until I had a stern word one day, and I think it was one of the boys came in and said, you're doing it for the sake of it. What are you doing? It's not like this in a game. You're not going to face 900 balls in a game. Like, you need to practice quality from ball one. So that's the same for you, is that to develop that knowledge, try to reach out to some professionals and try to just get a little bit of help from them, just to go, okay, well, geez, that they train like that. Look, it's working for them. Maybe I should try to implement something like that. So that's probably the advice that I try to give you, because people want to help people. So if you find some good people that want to help you and they get that out of that, that'd be amazing for you, I think.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I've got 2 more questions for you. So
Yeah.
basically, you've gone through the whole like Victoria schooling system pretty much, and you've obviously balanced school and sports together. What's your advice for like kids our age, like finishing high school and how to like balance it?
Yeah. Enjoy yourself. Just keep trying to enjoy, have that balance. Try to start to think about maybe. I think it's so hard, and I think schools put so much pressure on kids to be able to say, "Oh, at 18, you need to start knowing what you want to do after school." Because I'm 25. I've just finished professional sport. I couldn't tell you. I know what I like doing. I know what my values. I know what my principles, my purpose is. I like helping people. But I couldn't tell you one specific thing that I go, yep, I would love to do that for my whole life. And I'm 25, and I've met people that are 40 that are still doing that. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to try to find exactly what you want to do, but start trying to understand, do I think that I'd like that? And it's just as good eliminating things. And just, if you want to start an online business, maybe start having a look at it, start having a crack. And then if you have a crack at it and you don't like it, well, then you can go, I don't like that. And you can start eliminating things. So I think it's just about enjoying yourself, trying to understand what sort of things motivate you. If you don't like maths, but you got to do it, well, get your schoolwork out of the way, and then have that plan. Have that plan of, if you're trying to get better at 800-meter races, is that try to start getting better at planning it. So maybe at the start of your week, you go, all right, this monthly block, I'm going to train 3 times. I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get my training done before school. I know exactly what I want to do. I'll go to school. I'll get home from 3 o'clock, and then I know what nutrition I want to be eating. And it's almost that thing, that being that, I know it's almost cliche, but it's that 24/7 athlete. If you want to start improving and getting the best out of your body, it's about physically, how you're planning your runs, how are you planning your nutrition, how are you planning your well-being, and how are you dealing with school. Are you someone that wants to get a 98 ATAR because you know what you want to go into, or do you just
No
want
way.
to yeah, I know. So it's about almost understanding who you are as a person as quickly as possible. And I know I was like it at school. You go through the motions. You're like, oh, school, here we go again, going through the motions, whatever. But if you really don't like school, start trying to work out, what do you think, what will I like out of school? Do I want to become a tradie? Do I want to start an online business? Do I want to venture into this study, or just start maybe thinking about it? Because I wish I did. I wish I started thinking about, what would I like to do other than sport outside of school? So that'd be it from me, mate, is try to just really enjoy yourself, but just have a plan in place, have a quality plan in place. And that might be trying to message someone. I know that Ellie's got a coaching business. I don't know how much it costs. But it might be saying, hey, mum and dad, for this birthday, like I want to just have a birthday present. I want to have a little block with a running coach or someone that's been to the Olympics, and just say, hey, look, do you mind if I know that some of them probably just say to you, you just say, oh, hey, look, I know you've been to the Olympics. Do you mind just sending me through a little bit of your training plan? Because I'm trying to improve my 800-meter time. And most people, if they're good people, they're going to want to help you out.
Yeah, thanks for the advice, mate. I've asked you a fair few questions. You can ask me one question far away.
What are your goals, mate? What are you planning to do with this podcast, and sort of what are the next goals for you then? What are you gonna try to do to put in place after this chat?
Yeah, so with the podcast, I don't know, I want to like continue growing it, get more people that like, I've never met you in person before, but like other people that aren't necessarily my friends to tell their stories and see where that takes me. And I
Yeah.
just want to continue as like a hobby. And the sports, I want to continue playing sports, maybe not professionally, but like set goals such as making states, because I know I'm capable of that if I actually train. Um, and also not too stressed with schooling. Like I want to do a bachelor's in media and communications afterwards, like high school. But like some people I know are just nerds. Like I respect that, but like you don't have to go for that 99 ATAR because you need to set realistic goals. So mine would be just to balance school, sports, and all that. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's about it.
That's awesome, mate. And I think that it's so powerful as well, is don't ever say that, oh, I don't think I can become this or become that, because even I found out that Ellie, she was from Albury. She was playing all different sports like me and you were. And then she just really liked running. She got involved in a running group. She started running marathons. She ran good times, and she went, oh, okay. And then it just kept building up. And now she would have been at the Olympic Games right now in Tokyo if COVID wasn't around. So, mate, if you find something, you might do a marathon at some point. You might run a really good time and go, geez, I can. And it's like Lee as well. You said you listened to the Lee Grantham podcast. He was a recruiter. He was working in recruitment until he was like 30 or 35. And now he's one of the best ultra athletes in the world. So it can happen. You can do anything that you put your mind to.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Do you recommend anyone go up on my podcast maybe that has like a really good story?
I don't know if you watched it the other night, watched it on Netflix, but there's something, there's I can't remember what it's called. It's called something about rising fire, and it's about the Paralympics. And it's amazing. If you can watch it, have a look, and it sort of talks about the Paralympics and how it sort of evolved into an amazing event, and it showcases some Australian athletes that have sort of come through. And there's a guy on it called, I think his name's Riley Batt, and he's like the best wheelchair rugby player in the world. And um, his story is amazing. He doesn't have legs, but he's been able to be resilient enough to go, I can achieve anything I want to. And he's won a gold medal and a silver medal now at the Olympics, and he's absolutely killing it. I saw he's on his Instagram yesterday that he's like in the gym, he's dipping with a weight attached to his shorts, and he's just using his arms to pull him up, mate. It's pretty incredible. So watch that documentary. I think it's called like Rising Phoenix or something like that. So, mate, if you can get one of them people on there, that'd be incredibly powerful story.
Yeah, thanks for tuning into the Jez and Friends podcast. Remember, push yourself because no one is going to do it for you. And thank you so much for your time, Guy. Appreciate it, man.
No, thanks for having me on, Jez.